Welcome to the show, everyone. This is JR, founder and CEO of Social Market, here with another episode for the Social Ledger Report. This is kind of like the first time we're doing this, where we're talking about like true crime almost. So I was on Twitter, I was on X, whatever you want to call it, and I occasionally look at individual content from certain profiles. In this case, I was looking at Zach XBT. He is kind of like this journal or journalist or investigator on chain where he uncovers scams, inside trading, to name it. And he's actually grown popular over the years. He was once scammed, and that's kind of what led him to be this renowned investigator on the blockchains. I was looking into his profile and I came across into this thread. So this is from Eric Bergman. He founded Great.com. And I haven't looked into Great.com that much. I know it's a casino, but beyond that, I'm not entirely sure what it does. He's this rich guy who is trying to do good. And I read the entire thread. If you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, I'll be brief. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can find the article to the thread. But anyways, I'll just read the first few lines. It says, "I just got scammed for $1.25 million. I feel ashamed and stupid. This story starts with me getting a phone call from MrBeast and Mark Robert. They asked me to donate money to Team Water to build wells in Africa and help people get clean water. I'm surprised by their call. We've met before but haven't spoken in years." And then if you're seeing this on YouTube, it's a huge thread. And he kind of goes into detail what happened. He agreed to help MrBeast and Mark Robert with Team Water to bring wells into Africa. And I think that alone is amazing. You know, a lot of people may or may not like MrBeast just for how loud he can be or just the way he creates content. But, you know, I think him being one of the only people in the world that uses their money to actually help others. So whether you're like MrBeast or not, you know, he is amazing for what he's doing. But anyways, so he agreed to help out people. And unfortunately, he was approached by a group of people that were pretending to be MrBeast, Aiden Ross, Mark Robert, and other celebrities or influencers of the sort in this WhatsApp group. And here's the screenshot. If you're seeing this on YouTube, it says Team Water Top Gs. And then based on the screenshots, you're seeing Mark Robert, Team Water. I'm guessing someone who was posing as the admin for Team Water. Aiden Ross, Ed Craven, MrBeast, and that's it. And then including Eric Bergman. So this takes place over a retreat that Eric was in for the weekend. And effectively, this WhatsApp group chat was popping off. On this thread, at some point it says, "On Saturday, Jimmy writes in the chat and tells us about this other opportunity. He has just signed a deal with Coinbase, one of the largest crypto exchanges that will launch their own crypto coin." So first of all, he was lied to by MrBeast, or the person pretending to be MrBeast, I should say, was lying, saying, "Oh, hey, you know, I just talked to Coinbase. They're going to release their own token, and we should buy in early." So that's kind of like what started this scam. And this guy who was in the retreat, who had no time to think, kind of just followed along with who he thought was MrBeast. So he effectively put $1.25 million. So what kind of made this guy realize that he was being potentially scammed was after the retreat ended and he was heading home. According to his thread here, he says, "I still have a good feeling about all of this and I'm excited. I'm also exhausted after the weekend. Lots of experiences to process and far little to sleep." And then the following Tuesday, Jimmy, or MrBeast on the chat, says, "This is the final chance to get in. The price is now 45 cents per coin for the supposed Coinbase crypto coin, and everything up until now has been taken. Once again, I call my friend and say, let's go. We're about to send the money, but this time something makes me stop for a second." So this guy who has all this money was going to put even more money, but this is where he realized, now that he's no longer busy for the weekend, he says, "I see some details that are off. I know one of the Aiden Ross is American, but his phone number is British. Why is that? For the first time since this chat started, I called Jimmy just to confirm everything. And he says, 'What are you talking about?' And that's the punch of my stomach. I say, 'Please say that you're fucking kidding me.' And I send him a print screen of the chat." So the screenshot of you saw. And he says, he looks at it and it says, "Wow, I don't even know what to say. Please tell me you didn't send them any money." And I reply, 1.25 million. And the realization sinks in. Oh fuck. The first phone call from a few weeks ago was Jimmy, the real Jimmy. The fundraiser for clean water was Jimmy, the real Jimmy. But the person reaching out from this team wasn't from his team, it was a scammer. Jimmy in the chat wasn't Jimmy, it was a scammer. And it was very skillfully orchestrated. All the people in the chat were fake, all the banter was fake, the trip to Africa was fake, you name it. So that's kind of what happened. It's kind of shady, it sucks. Unfortunately he got scammed. And then this is from Doppelbanger in the same thread. He says, in this case, I think MrBeast is offering some reward, but if I were you, I'd wait for him to turn it into a YouTube video where he offers 1 million. So he's just joking there. But this is him replying to a post that MrBeast replied, which he says, anyone who gives us information that leads to an arrest, I will reward you with $100,000. So that's kind of cool, setting up a bounty against these scammers. I think these are effective ways to combat scams. And then this is where ZachXBT replied, where it kind of led me to discover this situation. He says, when you're only rewarded by a successful outcome, and not for all of the hours you spend initially with no guarantee of any compensation, makes it not worthwhile. This is what ZachXBT said. I pretty much agree with him. Nothing much more for me to say. And then I was looking up online, and I think this is fairly new. This was his reply from yesterday, and this happened on the 29th. So it's a relatively new story. Sportskita, dude, what's with these names? I don't know how to pronounce it. But Sportskita, this article says, I will reward you. MrBeast offers 100,000. So kind of just bringing more awareness to this. I mean, this is nothing new. We've seen all kinds of crypto scams. And I would say that the sort of crime that's been happening with high or big time crypto investors is getting out of control. This is a more or less crazy one. A few weeks ago, we uncovered the kidnapping of one of the investors' children or, relatives or family association. And, that's probably the worst that we're going to see when it comes to scams or just fraud acts here on crypto and within this investor side of the world. I've talked to some investors before. I've talked to people who are rich, who have their opinions about crypto. A lot of them don't like crypto. These are people who generally, don't understand crypto or don't use it. They oftentimes dismiss crypto as a easy gateway to crime or easy gateway for scammers to get away with crime. And I mean, you can't hate the technology just because it's anonymous and it effectively anonymizes whoever is sending the money. Through that method, it's really easy to get away with scam if you're careful, more careful than, normal. But, we've seen time after time with CoffeeZilla, with ZachXBT, if you follow ZachXBT, they uncover these scams and, they put a lot of hours and time into doing their journalism, but you can still, at the end of the day, track who is doing this, who is scamming who. You just got to follow the wallets. You got to follow the transactions. This is the beauty about blockchain, in my opinion. Even though you don't immediately see who is scamming who or who is the, scammer, you can still track their movement, and that can always lead to an arrest, CoffeeZilla has already, done an amazing job with journalism, and ZachXBT has also, I believe, put people behind the bars with his journalism. It's always possible to catch the scammers. It's only a matter of time, in my opinion. Some do get away, unfortunately, but my point here is I would argue that it is easier to get away with cash money because, that one is untraceable. Like, sure, you got to put it away into banks and everything, but, money laundering exists. And if you had to compare both crypto scams and US dollars or fiat currency scams or theft, money laundering, if the scammers know what they're doing and are very sophisticated, they can always just get away with crime by laundering their money. Does that mean we should ban US dollars? Should we ban fiat currency? I don't think so. So for those reasons, I think we're not going to see the end of this anytime soon, but it's going to be interesting to see what happens. So that's pretty much everything I have to cover with Eric Bergman, with the founder of Great.com, who got scammed, unfortunately. So just stay vigilant, guys. You don't know what could happen tomorrow. You don't know if you could get your money drained. So just always be vigilant. Always practice your PsyOps, like security operations.